Welcome to Leadership for the New Epoch Transition, Part 3, with Chris Valentin. This session is entitled, Developing a Culture of Reward.
We're finishing this whole section on developing a mission and vision, setting goals, plans, and steps. And so we've spent a lot of time on mission. Just for the sake of some of our visitors today, we talked about how mission is the why. And a lot of people mistake vision and mission. Mission is the purpose. It's why we're doing what we're doing. Vision is the what. What does it look like? It says, remember this, Proverbs 29:18, without a vision the people perish. Happy is he who keeps the law. Please, I was trying to impress the guests. The law. Okay. Jeez. Yes. Okay, so we talked about that it's not in the mission that people are motivated as much as it is in the vision. So, and we spend a lot of time talking about how to impart vision to people and how when people see it, that they've captured it. And we've talked about the difference between people being able to repeat a vision, an echo, and people who have captured the vision. And we talked about that the greater the vision, the greater the sacrifice, the clearer the vision needs to be. And we spent a lot of time on that, and I thought that turned out to be a really good session, a couple of sessions we did, and really felt like that, I told you this, I said it just to you 2 days ago. I really do believe that the difference between a world-class leader and a good leader is a world-class leader knows how to impart vision to different types of people. It's pretty easy to it's pretty easy to inspire people who are already visionaries. So we talked about this a lot, that the goal is to be able to inspire people who aren't visionaries. Maybe be a great exercise for you. We all know people who aren't much of visionary. They don't have a lot of envisionment kind of gifts in them. That'd be really cool for you just as a homework assignment for yourself in the next few months is just try to inspire somebody who's not really a visionary, just to something that you're passionate about. That'd be a great exercise in learning how to lead right there. Okay, so we talked about that, and we spent a lot of time talking about just some practical ways that you can inspire vision. And then we talked about plans, and we talked about how plans, Proverbs says, without consultation, plans are frustrated, but with many counselors they succeed. And we talked about how the mission and vision needs to originate in God, but that God actually gives us responsibility for the plan. I think that's really important to know. It doesn't mean God's not involved, but He expects you to make a plan. So, and we talked about different ways to develop counselors to create a plan. And then we talked about goals, and I thought that was really, we did one session on goals that I thought was extraordinary. Like I felt like we hit a real nerve in God, and just learning how to set goals that inspire people, but that you don't create expectation that you can't fulfill, because then hope deferred makes the heart sick. But on the other hand, if you set the goals too low, people aren't motivated. So we talked about the art of goal setting, and there really is an art to goal setting, because if you learn how to set goals that are just a little bit more than what humanity can do, you inspire people and you lessen the need for management in your culture, because people are inspired by the goals. On the other hand, if you set the goal so low, let's say they work an 8-hour shift and they can actually get everything done in 4 hours, they're not going to be very inspired people. But and then we talked about how the goals, how important it is for the goals to be directly related to the mission and vision, and how oftentimes goals, I've seen people set goals that really don't have anything to do with capturing the mission and vision. And so the last session we talked about creating a culture of reward, and I think that there was some good stuff in that. And in that we want to make sure that we want to create a reward culture, not a punishment culture. The gospel means good news, and Jesus said, John sang the dirge, and you did not mourn. I played the flute, and you did not dance. And I've talked about this a couple of times in the last couple of months. And then Jesus, in fact, it was actually Paul, who meets some believers, and he said, did you receive the Holy Spirit when you were baptized? And they said, we didn't even know there was a Holy Spirit. And he said, what baptism were you baptized into? And they said, we were baptized into the baptism of John. Apollos, it says, was only acquainted with the baptism of John. And it says that Priscilla and Aquila, they taught him the way more accurately. And so there was a lot of believers in the book of Acts that were still being baptized into John's baptism, which was a baptism of repentance. But the baptism of Jesus was a baptism of resurrection. Now, the difference is the mindset. There's a difference in mindset. We're bringing the gospel, which means good news. It's really important that if our core value is good news, that the gospel is good news, and we're here to play the flute, not to sing the dirge, then that everything we do comes out of that core value, and even the way that we bring about discipline and we create cultures needs to be playing the flute, not singing the dirge. It's not our core of who we are is not calling people to repentance. I don't mean the kingdom, repent for the kingdom of God is at hand. Jesus even preached that. But the core message is that the kindness of God leads people to repentance. So we have to keep that in our core value, that as leaders, we're looking to develop a culture of reward, not a culture of punishment. Does that mean that we don't discipline people? No, Hebrews 12 says that if you're a person who doesn't have discipline, then King James says you're a bastard, or you're not a son. You're an illegitimate child is the word there. You're an illegitimate child. So you're called a disciple. So disciple comes from the word discipline. Discipline needs to be in the culture. But how many of you know that if discipline gets boiled down to an angry culture, a culture of punishment, that's not the kingdom. The kingdom is about good news. The first ministry we hear of John the Baptist is that he's calling people to repentance, and he's talking to the Pharisees about being vipers. The first ministry that introduces Jesus is he's making wine at a wedding. John's wearing camel hair and eating locusts and wild honey, and Jesus is wearing a garment that is so expensive that the soldiers gamble for it. If I could just say that there's a difference between the ministry of John and the ministry of Jesus. John gets beheaded. Why does he die in a beheading when he could have easily been crucified like Jesus and the robbers were crucified? Common way to execute people was to crucify them on that day. And yet instead they cut John's head off. I believe it's because prophetic declaration that the prophets, John being the greatest of all the old prophets, that way of thinking, that whole way of thinking, the dirge, if you will, that way of thinking is cut off. And yet Jesus was crucified on a place called Golgotha, which means the skull. Why was he crucified at Golgotha? Because he's the head of the church. And so what I'm getting at is that there's a mentality here. There's a mentality. And as we shift mentalities, whether you have a business or whether you're leading a ministry or whether you're leading your family, you're not called to sing the dirge. It doesn't mean you won't have trouble. Jesus said, through many tribulations will you enter the kingdom. I'm talking about your culture. There's a difference between I disciplined my son or I got angry and I'm an angry person. That is totally two different homes, isn't it? We all know the difference. I mean, we may argue what exactly it looks like on a whiteboard, but we all know the difference between coming into an angry person's home and my dad got angry. And usually, if your dad got angry and he's not an angry person, everybody listens because there's usually a good reason. If dad's angry all the time, pretty much all you do is stay out of the way. You haven't come into a kingdom where your father's angry. He's not an angry person. He's not singing the dirge. This is about the dance, playing the flute. And so our culture, as we lead people, as we develop a culture, we're not looking to develop a culture of punishment. In other words, when people come into our culture, they shouldn't be thinking, if I do something wrong, I'm going to be punished. They should be thinking, I wonder what I can do to get a reward. Now, I know that sounds anti-Christ for the religious culture. They don't like you to do anything for reward. I don't think that you're doing it for a pure heart. And we talked about this just a couple days ago, that, Jesus talked about Pharisees who stood in strategic places so people would watch them pray. And he said, they're doing that for people. And we talked about the balance just a couple of days ago between, hey, you do need to be encouraged by people. It's all through the New Testament about encouraging one another. So there's encouragement that comes from people that's very healthy. And anybody who says, hey, I don't need anyone, they're not being real. But when all your encouragement comes from people, you've lost sight of the real person that you're supposed to be living for. And so we have to keep that in context. But here's the point. We want to develop a culture of reward. Does it have discipline in it? Yes, but the culture is a culture of reward. And then we talked about, I gave you an example that probably went on too long. I like to tell stories, so I told you a story that, let's see, Charity said it was disproportionate. Disproportionate. That's good. I gotta learn that. Out of balance. That's good sometimes. But I told you a story about how we learned to motivate people in our service station, and how when we had young people who were living for today, that when we gave them commission on the products they sold, and they had to wait till the end of the week to get their commission, or they had to wait till the end of the month, they weren't motivated. But because they were in instant gratification mode. But as soon as we moved the reward, as soon as we moved the reward right up to they do the act, they get the reward immediately, that their behavior changed. And so we just talked about like knowing your people, understanding what it takes to motivate people. And sometimes I've gotten in sessions with lots of leaders where they're like, I'm doing all these things to reward my people. I don't understand why they're not motivated. And it's totally true. Just like I could say that with in my example I gave you with my men. It's like, okay, I'm giving them, I haven't muzzled the ox while they're threshing. I've rewarded them. I've given them a piece of the action. Every time they sell something, they immediately get a piece of the action, or they get a piece of the action. But it's still knowing your people, like what motivates your people. And so in this case, the carrot was fine. They liked carrots, but they weren't going to do something for a carrot if they weren't going to get the carrot right away. And, in my example, some people don't like carrots. So it's a silly example, but you got to know your people. Like, what does it take to motivate your people? And I spent some time talking to you about, like, just a few different ideas. Like, how do you know what makes people alive? There's different ways to know what makes people alive. And so we talked a lot about that, and I thought some of that was really good. I want to give you one more example of that, and then I'll take you to the last thing, and that'll probably give us just a few minutes to do questions and answers. But I told you I had an auto parts store, and I told you about that they had a commission. And I had an auto parts store, and I had 3 auto repair shops at the same time. Actually opened the auto parts store to feed our repair shops. And so the auto parts stores had, they got commission for every part they sold. And the repair shop guys, the mechanics, they got a commission by how much work they produced every day. For instance, if they worked 8 hours and they were able to charge 8 hours to the customer, it went by the month. If they worked 172 hours in a month, that's how many hours there are in a full-time month, and they charged out 172 hours, so they charged out 100% of the time, they got a $500 bonus. If they charged out 90% of their time, they got a $400 bonus. This 70% of the time, they got a $300 bonus, and on down like that. So they made money based on how efficient they were. The more efficient they were, the more money the shop made, the more money they made. So how this little dynamic. When I opened the auto parts store, the auto parts guys got commission on what they sold. So they got 2%, they got regular pay, and they got 2% of everything they sold over the counter was theirs. So they made a profit on that. So here was the struggle. We have a meeting, and we have my 3 shops, and I got all my auto parts guys, and they get together in the room at my house, and I'm thinking we're just going to have a little celebration, and they get in an argument. And they start screaming at each other in my house. Literally, they're screaming at each other. There's like 20 of them. And here's the argument. Shorten the story. Shorten the story. I'm not good at that part. That's disproportionate. My disproportionate part. The argument is that the shop guys don't want to use my auto parts store because guess who my auto parts store delivers to first? All the other shops. Because my shops have to buy from my auto parts store, but the other shops don't have to buy from my auto parts store. So whose business are they trying to gain? They're trying to gain everyone else's business. They say, hey, I have your business. So they would have a 5-mile delivery. My shop was about half a mile from our store. My shops were half a mile from my store. They would drive past my shops to make the 5-mile delivery and deliver to my guys on the way back. So they actually were going to fist in my front room. And I'm like, this is crazy. And so finally the next day I go to my shops and my shop guys are all together. They're all angry and they're like, they're going to start this union. And they're like, we do not want to buy from our parts store. We want permission to buy from wherever we want so that they're motivated to deliver to us, to serve us. And I'm thinking about this. Oh my goodness. I go to bed that night and I said, Lord, I don't know what to do. And the Lord said, why don't you do this? Why don't you make them individually members of one another? Romans 12. We're individually members of one another. So I'm like, because God speaks to us in riddles, right? Yeah. Proverbs says that one of the reasons for the Proverbs is to understand riddles. How many of you know that even Romans 12, that we're individually members of one another, can be a riddle? Did you notice that he said Proverbs 1 says that one of the reasons for the proverb is that you would understand riddles, and then he gives you 31 proverbs, and there's not a riddle in it? Or is there? I don't know if you got that. It may be that you don't know that it's a riddle, that it's a riddle. So the Lord said this to me. I'm laying in bed, and He goes, I'm just complaining to God. And He goes, why don't you make them individually members of one another? That's what I do in the kingdom, and it works well. I said, what? He said, you're an individual, but you're members of one another. Well, I don't get that at all. He said, well, just think about it. You will. I spent a week thinking about that verse. What does individually being members of one another have anything to do with my guys want to kill each other and they want to use another parts store? What does that have anything to do with business? And I started thinking about it. Okay, let's see. We're individuals in that we get to be ourselves. But I have to make sure that being myself benefits you. Because I'm individual, but I'm still a member of you. So I can't be an individual in a way that doesn't benefit you, because Philippians says that I'm actually supposed to live for your benefit before my benefit. So I'm an individual, but I'm individually a member of something bigger. So the first thing I thought of was, wait a second. My guys need to feel like, my mechanics need to feel like they're a part of something bigger than the shops. Because, see, this is all one company. And when the parts store prospers, I prosper. And when the auto parts store prospers, I prosper. And the Lord said, yes, you prosper, but they don't. And then He said, that's not the way the body works. See, when one member prospers in the body, everyone prospers. But you have it set up so they prosper individually without prospering corporately. You don't have them individually members of one another. So I'm laying there like, oh, this is crazy. I don't know what he's talking about. But so then I got this idea. I'm like, oh, I get it. I have to set up some sort of system that when the shop prospers, the parts house prospers. The guys at the parts house prosper. Not the owner, the guys. So I get this idea. I go, okay, I got an idea. Here's what we'll do. When the shop does X dollars, let's say that they do $40,000 in labor, let's say that right now they're doing 35. When they do 40, all of my parts house guys will get a $500 a month bonus. And when my parts house, which at that time was doing about $35,000 a month, when they hit 40, all of my shop guys will get $500 a month. So I sit them all down and I tell them this. So it's a little bit more than they're both doing, right? Because I have to have it be a little bit more, because I have to figure out how I'm going to get the $500 to pay everybody. So I can't just give away money. So I figured out how much it would take for me to break even. And I'm like, okay, so I add that to what both places are doing. And I go, okay, this won't cost me a dime if they hit these goals. And they're both going to be, they're not going to be rewarded for what they do. They're going to be rewarded for what the other place does. So I get them all together and I tell them the thing, and they go, well, whatever. I don't care. They act like they don't care, right? So I go, okay. So they're not thinking they care. So then I go, okay, let's see. There's got to be some way for them to see the goal, right? We talked about how would it be if you played a game and you didn't know the score till the game was over. You wouldn't be very motivated, right? Who would watch football if you never knew the score? Or basketball, hey, nobody told us what the score was until the game was over. So some way they had to watch the score. So what I did is I set the goal. Put another chart right by the charts they have, right? I'll put another chart. In the auto parts store, I put a chart for the mechanic chart. And this is the goal. And every day I colored in how close they are to the goal, right? And then in the repair shop, I put the parts house chart. And every day I colored in. The first 15 days, they could give a rip. I'm telling you, I don't think they looked at it. It didn't do anything. They're still mad at each other. They're slamming the phones down on each other. That's how bad it was. Whatever. Get to you. Slam it down. And they'll call right back. Right back. Don't ever hang up on me. And it's just like, I got this going on. This is so bad. And so, this is called Crossroad Auto Parts. It's supposed to have something to do with Jesus in it, This is bad. This is really bad. About the 20th day, I think it was somewhere around, we're somewhere around two-thirds around the month. I remember something happened. Because the 20th day, one of my counter guys divides the days up, how much they're doing a day, the other guys are doing a day, and figures out where they are on the 21st, 22nd days. They were 8 days or 9 days from the end of the month. And I remember, I'm then sitting in the office, and they get together, and I can overhear them saying, you know what, if they do $25 more a day than they're doing for 8 more days, we're all going to make $500. They were really close, and they realized, they're not going to make it without our help. They're not going to make it without our help. And so, and then I was at the shop, and they didn't catch on for about 5 days before the month was out. But about 5 days before the month was out, they were only going to miss their goal. But I think it was if I remember correctly, somewhere around $2,000. And on 40, they're only going to miss it by $2,000. So in other words, the shop only needs to buy $2,000 more parts than it looks like they're going to, and everybody in the shop's going to make $500 extra, right? That's it. You should have seen the last 5 days. It was so nice. They're like, hey, how'd you guys do today? Come on. And suddenly there was this amazing participation. And the whole last about 5, 6, 7, 8 days of the month, they were calling each other back and forth to see if they were going to make the goal. And the first month, they made the goal. It was amazing. It was amazing. And that was the first year. I had that parts house for 9 years. From that day on, they got along so well. What happened is that we developed just like the kingdom. When one person prospers, everybody prospers. When the boss prospers, the employees should prosper. When the employees prosper, the boss should prosper. Whenever someone else's department's prospering, everyone else who helped that department prosper should be rewarded for it. Are you with me? And suddenly, and of course every month we raised the goal, which they didn't like that very much. Oh, I hit the goal, now I want to raise the goal. It's like, well, I'm sorry, that's what life is. But do you see what I'm getting at? It's like what happens is it's up to you to develop a reward culture. It may not be money. It may not have anything to do with money. Many of you are going to be in missions and in ministries that are mostly volunteers. You don't pay them at all. How do you motivate someone who's not paid at all? Remember, people ran around the bases for free. Remember my example? My guys won't run to the phone, but they're playing softball, and they'll run around the bases for free. I was like, you have to read a really good book on what motivates people. Create motivation. People they're looking for a sense of significance. They're looking for a sense of that you care, that they're making a mark, that what they do matters. Do you know what I'm getting at? Okay, the last part, I'm just going to have a few minutes to talk to you about, and we'll finish with this. Finish this whole section with this, is systems. We need to develop systems that fulfill the purpose of the vision and cause us to be consistent. Our repetition becomes our reputation. Okay, let me just read that one more time. We need to develop systems. Everybody say the word systems. I know everybody who's in church, who's been controlled in religious systems, hears this word systems, and they want to run out of the room. But there's systems even if you don't want them. There's a dysfunctional system, but it's still a system. So we need to develop systems that fulfill the vision and cause us to be consistent so that our repetition becomes our reputation. Now, I talked to you about this a while back, but a lot of people hate when people talk behind their back. A person talks behind my back. When somebody says, so-and-so talked behind my back, we all know what they mean is they said bad stuff about me. Because we all love when people talk behind our back as long as it's awesome. I just walked up today and two people were talking, two of our staff, and I said, hey, it looks like you guys are gossiping. They said, about you. Move on. Keep going. We love when people talk behind our backs, and it's positive. We hate when people talk behind our backs, and it's negative. And we know that we shouldn't be, if we have something, this is our motto. If you're not part of the problem and you're not part of the solution, it's none of your dang business. But the truth of the matter is, if you don't like your reputation, change your reputation. Because your reputation, what you do consistently, not what you did once. Well, let me tell you, we all have our defenses, right? We're like, we go, you know what, you're just not very generous. Well, let me tell you, back in 42, gave a $3,000 offering, and we didn't even have money to pay our rent. Yeah, if your testimony is pretty old, it's not your reputation. If the last time you did it was you had to find it on another calendar, probably that's not something you're famous for. You know what I'm saying? You're kind of harsh. Well, let me tell you. There was a kid back 15 years ago, and I was, it's like, I'm sorry, but that probably doesn't have much to do with your reputation, because you had to think of an example that was years old, right? And so one of the things I want to say is like this. If you don't like your reputation, change your reputation. Because you're actually known not for your exceptions. You actually get known for your rules. What do you do every day? What do you consistently do? And, if you're running a business, a ministry, people need to be able to count on you. Listen, trust. Are you guys with me? Am I boring you? Okay. Trust is built on consistency. And trust is the core of relationships. And relationships are the core of great leadership. Don't ask me to say it again because I haven't thought of it before. Trust is the core. Consistency is the core of trust. Trust is the core of relationships. And great leadership is built on relationships. People have to trust you. You do what you say what you do, you're consistent. Are you with me? How many people in this room think that you could make a better hamburger, okay, I want you to think about this, than McDonald's? How many think you can make a better hamburger than McDonald's? How many of you? Raise your hand. I'm dead serious. I'm not joking. You think you can make a better hamburger than McDonald's? How many of you think you could? How many of you don't think you could make a better hamburger than McDonald's? A couple of you are like, you must not be able to cook at all. That's all I can say. Okay. It was like what? 200 to 2 or something? Okay. Let me ask you a question. If you can make a better hamburger than McDonald's, why aren't you a billionaire? Did I already teach you this? Just it's got to be systems. It's got to be the answer. I know the answer is Jesus. I just don't know. Don't know where he fits into hamburgers, but answer's got to be Jesus. See, anybody can make a better hamburger, with the exception of a few. Anybody can make a better hamburger than McDonald's. But what does McDonald's do to get people to come in? If you drive to a foreign city and you've never been there before, and you have Joe's Super Burgers, and the sign says the best burgers in the world, and you got McDonald's next door, which place is packed generally? I know there are exceptions. What place? Generally, I know some people just like to argue. You're like, well, it's going to be Joe's Burgers. Oh, I know that. In fact, I know Joe. He's got a... I get it. I understand. Generally, what place is going to be packed? McDonald's. But does McDonald's make better burgers than Joe's greatest burgers in the world? Well, why did you go to McDonald's then? You know what you're going to get at McDonald's. You go to Africa in McDonald's. McDonald's Africa. In McDonald's Africa, McDonald's burgers taste like cardboard, just like in America. Same. McDonald's Australia. Same bad burger you get anywhere in the world. Same. If burgers were rated between 1 to 10, in my opinion, McDonald's would be about a 3. But you know where I go in Africa? McDonald's. You know why? Because I know what I'm going to get. I don't know about Joe's super great, world's greatest burgers. But I know that I'm going to get the same burger at McDonald's in Redding as I get when I go to San Jose. I know that. Why? Because of systems. McDonald's, when the guy who bought McDonald's, he sold appliances, mixers, and milkshake makers. And he went into this guy's place week after week or month after month, however often he went in there, and he noticed that this guy had a system to make burgers. That he actually had a system. And so he bought into that. He bought a partnership with that guy, Mr. McDonald. They opened 2 stores together, got in a fight, and split up. But the point is that he didn't buy the place because they made great burgers. He bought the place because this Mr. McDonald, he had this amazing ability to think through a system and then train people in a system, and then he had a way to make sure that they consistently did what he trained them to do. In other words, why do you go to McDonald's? It's really simple. They create expectation that they consistently fulfill. Is it high expectation? No. My opinion? No. But they've built, listen to this. This is an important piece. One piece is missing. They've built trust in you. You trust them. Do you trust them to give you the best burger you've ever eaten? No. You trust them to give you the burger that you got at home You trust them to give it to you everywhere else. And the reason why they've won your trust is because of their reputation. They do the same thing everywhere. I should say something. Some of you are like, boring. I will never eat there because I know what it's going to be like. I like adventure. I like adventure, but not when it comes to food. This is a guy who brings power bars to Africa, all right? Okay, here's the point. It's important that you develop systems that create consistency in the areas of your leadership that people can depend on you. They can depend on you. For a little silly example, if you have a business, I drive up and I see business hours. These are crazy. Monday we open at 8:30 and we close at 3. Tuesday we open at 8:45 and we close at 7. And Wednesday we open at 6 in the morning and we close at 9 o'clock at night. I'm like, how the heck would anybody remember that? And what happens when you drive up and you're like, yeah, I'm just so hungry for a McDonald's burger. And you get there and like, I'm sorry, we're closed. Well, yesterday you were open at this time. Yeah, well, we close 15 minutes earlier on Wednesday than we do on Thursday. But if you come on Friday, this is my guys. When they get slow, like parts stores close, 4 o'clock. Oh, we haven't had a customer for half an hour. Let's close the store. No. Well, we're going to only have one customer. Listen, no. We're not staying open till 5 o'clock because we might get one customer. We're staying open at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or whatever your time is so that people can count on us. They learn to count on us. We are there from 7 to 6. They count on. Well, I'll tell you what, we're losing money doing that. Yesterday we lost money. We could have closed and saved. We sent 3 guys home. Yeah, that's yesterday. But what we're creating is repetition that gives us a reputation that causes people to be able to trust us. That's what we need. We need people to trust us because relationships are built on trust. And if you're in business or you're in ministry or whatever, it's all about relationship. It's all about that people can count on you. How do you feel when you call a church and they go, if you need deliverance, hi, you've reached Joe's Supernatural Church of Ministry, greatest in the world. If you need deliverance, press 1. And you press 1, it's like, if you need deliverance from alcohol, press 1. If you need deliverance from, it's like calling the church. I thought the church was made of people. I don't want to talk to a machine. I don't want to tell a machine my problem. I don't want anyone else. What if they're recording it? I don't want everyone to know why I'm calling. I want to talk to a human person like Jesus created, not people created. I want somebody to talk to me. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like so important, And I think technology's got crazy. I think it breaks core relationships. I think that whoever puts those phone systems in where you have to push 3 buttons before you get a human being doesn't understand the core thing that people are looking for when they go to a business. They're looking for a relationship with somebody. What happens when you walk up to the banker, to the counter, and they go, hey, Chris, how you doing? Chris, they knew my name. Do I have my tag on? Or you're stunned. I may not know anything else about you, but if they remembered your name, you're going to go back. Why? There's something about being known. There's something about, you know what I'm getting at anyway. So, your job is to create a system that is consistent. I don't mean that you can't be spontaneous. If you're at McDonald's, people don't want your spontaneous burger. They want the cardboard they came for, all right? You understand what I'm getting at. You want to create a system that somehow manifests the plan, that fits into the steps, that accomplishes the goals, that succeeds in the vision, that accomplishes the mission. This all have to be thought through so that actually what you're doing today has something to do with what God's called you to do. I mean, this isn't very hard, But I don't know how many times we lose sight of what I'm doing today has nothing to do with Paul, where he said, I ran the race, I finished my course. So many of us get off course, we're out there running, we're running. It doesn't have anything to do with what we're called to do. We just, we just feel better about somehow, there's just something about working hard, even if it doesn't have anything to do with accomplishing something that God's called us to do, that makes us feel better about ourselves. It's just a performance-based thing that we are just suffer from. I'm just hey, you know what? That's not what you're called to do. It's not what you're called to do. We have about 5 minutes. Does anyone have a question? Okay.
As a church, Bethel has been talking a lot about how women can become a part, how we can envision the church to see our vital role in the church and in leadership. What do we need to change to make that an actual system and a part of things that are to come?
Do you think that women are not empowered at Bethel Church? Does it feel that way to you?
I feel like we are very
Don't
empowered.
tell the truth right now.
But I do feel like there's places we still haven't gone yet in Bethel.
And where would that be?
The main top leadership.
So do you feel like Benny's pretty disempowered?
No, but I wish I could hear her more. I wish I could see her face and her vital role in our church.
Good.
Playing a role on Sunday morning even. It's important.
You know why she doesn't?
I actually don't.
Because she hasn't wanted to. So that's probably a piece of the puzzle. It's like our senior leader, his wife is not the kind of person who has, and at least in the past, wanted the limelight or has not just wanted it, is shied away from it. But I see a big change coming in her.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
leaned over and said, hey, I'm going to have you preach on a Sunday night. She said, good, I've been ready. I'm like,
yeah.
Hey. Calm down here. You start thinking you're somebody just because you wrote a book. I wrote her last night. I iChat her. She's on iChat. I said, I checked Amazon, and her book's outselling all of our books. Hey! That's painful. I iChat her. I said, hey, your book is outselling all of our books. And she said, oh, that's really cool. I said, it just shows people's priority. She writes back, what are you saying? I said, you wrote a book on intercession. People are buying a book on prayer, but they don't care about sexual purity. So I wrote her back and she writes, laughing out loud. Then the question you're asking, we've been working with. And I think that, Bill brought me in the office the other day, and he said, I really feel like it's time for us to make an extra effort to get our women in front of teaching Sundays, teaching Sunday nights.
Yeah.
And so I think that's, I think that you develop a system where you think you're empowering, but the people who are disempowered the people who aren't a part of the system feel disempowered. So it's kind of like, hey, we've never oppressed women, and it's the difference between proactively inviting them in.
Yeah.
It's a different, I think, did we talk about this yesterday or whatever? There's a difference between being empowering and being absent.
Yeah.
So I think that for years we think we're being empowering. We are totally like, hey, you want to preach? Come on, we'll let you preach. Mm-hmm. But there's a difference between that and being Mordecai to Esther.
Right.
And I've been saying for a couple of years, and this is Danny's main message he's carrying right now. I don't know if you've heard him teach lately, but in the background, in the background of Bethel, he's going, we have to figure out how to get our women more involved. And can I just be honest? Here's the struggle.
Yeah.
I cannot put a person in leadership because of their gender,
Right.
or because of their ethnic group, or I don't know what else would be. But I can't. I'm not going to choose somebody Okay, well, we need a black person on staff because we don't have a black person. So, no, that I can't do that. I need to be colorblind and gender blind.
Yeah.
But here's the struggle. If women have been oppressed in culture, not just American culture, which probably has done a better job with women than most cultures,
Right.
but if women have been oppressed for thousands of years, then the struggle is that they typically are not as qualified to lead because they have never got a chance to lead.
Right.
So they don't have 3 generations. Hey, my mother was a leader, her mother was a leader, and now I'm a leader.
Yeah.
They don't have generations of leading because they've not been able to lead. Do you know what I'm saying?
I do.
So it's like, okay, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Because if I end up with, I choose this woman because she's a woman, even though this man can do the job better, he's more qualified, then I end up like, well, that feels really weird. That's what the world does. They have quotas.
Right.
On the other hand, if I don't figure out some way to at least get women on a farm team, so to speak, playing the game in the minor leagues, they're never going to make the major leagues
Right.
because they have no experience. So, what's happening now is little by little women are getting experience. We're seeing, Sarah Palin, which that was amazing, Ashley Swearington, Sherry Silk in our culture is getting a lot of leadership. I've known Sherry since she was a teenager. She's getting a lot of leadership experience. And so now we're getting to the place, Kathy, my wife, has lots of leadership. Benny's getting Benny stayed out of the leadership role of all of Weaverville, did not want any part of it. Wow. And now I see her totally there's a switch inside of her that turned on. So what's happening is these ladies are getting real experience. So now we can go, hey, you should be on the senior team, not because, we made our woman quota, which makes the women happy, but it doesn't feel real to me.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel right.
I agree.
And so I think what's happening is in the next couple years, especially, and I got to say this, I think Danny's the main catalyst carrying this message right now. Mm-hmm. I think that we need to just keep going, we need to keep pushing our women. Here's your constraint. These are the reasons why. These are the things that are keeping you off the senior team. Like, these are areas you have no experience in, or you don't have education in, or whatever it is,
Right.
And instead of just going, you're eliminated, go, this is the process so that you can come into that place. So that when we put you there, it isn't a quota system. And so when the woman's in there, she doesn't feel like, I know why they put me here. They needed a woman.
Yeah.
They needed a black person. They needed an Asian. Well, nobody wants to be there because they're the boss's son or they met some quota.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
I do.
So I think you'll see in the next 2 years people coming onto our senior team. Definitely you'll see women. You saw Jen the other night. I heard she did amazing. I haven't even got to see it yet. So great question. And that's all we have time for, so I have to go. Someone else, don't ask me any more questions like that, please.
If you would like to order this message or any other product produced by Bethel Church, please visit our online store at